Webbing the surf is a metaphor for people who work online to live wherever and however they want. Work the web, enjoy the surf, whatever your surf may be. Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of Webbing the Surf. I am here in the jungles of Jalapa, Mexico, with my good friend and business partner, Dan Ballantyne, who I've been wanting to get on the show for quite some time. One of the most interesting men I know. Dan, my first question for you, you're certainly one of the smartest people I know. Are you a real genius?
I don't think so.
Have you ever been tested?
I haven't, but all I do is solve problems.
Can you do a Rubik's Cube?
I can.
You can?
Yeah.
Man, I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Dan, you have a super interesting backstory. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you grew up? Because I know it's pretty varied.
It is. So I've been all around the United States. I started in Alaska and did a lot of my childhood there and progressed down into the Pacific Northwest where I did high school and college. And then I went down to Texas and migrated my way around Texas, the Northeast, and then eventually landed in Colorado. So I'm currently in Colorado after a couple stints, including one brief year in Mexico.
What memories stand out about being a kid growing up in Alaska?
There's a lot of them. So taking an airplane into backcountry villages to go fishing and just the 14-foot snowbanks on the way to the school bus. And coming from Alaska, I really didn't have much to compare to, so it was just pretty common. But it was interesting coming down to Portland and into Seattle where I'd never really seen it get dark before because it's always twilight up there.
Wow.
So,
yeah, like that movie Insomnia, huh?
Yeah, so when you get down into the contiguous 48 states, it gets dark when the sun goes down.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of crazy and speaking of planes, you had your own plane.
It did.
For how long?
3 years.
3 years you had your own plane. What kind of a plane?
It was a Murphy Rebel, so 2-seat backcountry bush plane.
So cool. So for digital nomads, that's like the ultimate dream to have a plane and be able to kind of go wherever you want. And you pretty much did that, right? I mean,
yeah, I did a lot of that. So I was in Reno for a while and was flying out in the deserts. And the cool thing about the state of Nevada is the state owns the majority of the land, like 90% or something. And you can land an airplane on it. So if you can find a place flat enough, you can land there. So we'd fly around at a group of people that I'd fly with, and we'd cruise around, look for the steam coming off the hot springs, and land and enjoy the hot springs.
Wow. So if you had your plane here in Mexico, you could just fly it and land on a beach?
Yeah, so I had big tires on mine, so yeah, I could land on the beach, no problem.
Man, that is insane.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so tell us a little bit about what is your technical background? Like, well, I don't even know what your degree is in.
So my degree's in MIS, which is the combination of computer science and management, basically. So it's the management of information technology. And I have a varied background where I started working on computers and doing computer repair type things in high school. There was a high school class. Coming out of Alaska, I knew nothing about any computers, so my junior year I got into that. Mm-hmm. And then that got me through college, where I was working for the college doing that, and it actually got me my first job. So I was doing desktop support for a call center, and we got people sweeping behind. So doing desktop support for a call center, and as I progressed through that, one of the things that my leadership noticed is I was able to solve problems. And I could solve problems with physical hardware, with software, with engineering type things. And so my career progressed into reporting and analytics, mm-hmm. and then statistical analytics. And now I'm the director of data and infrastructure for a reporting organization in the United States.
How far did you go in mathematics? Because I feel like you're really good at math.
In school, I actually didn't go that far. So I went through calculus and I went through trig. And the unfortunate thing was, by the time I got into math that I actually cared about, I find algebra relatively useless. It's very theoretical, and I just don't have a use for it in the day-to-day life. But getting into trigonometry, I really enjoyed. Getting into calculus, I really enjoyed. And that was really about the end of my official parts there. But as we'll talk about in a minute, doing wireless ISPs and doing a lot of other things, I had to progress a little bit further in certain fields. So trig is one of them that do a lot of calculations, do a lot of triangles, and do a lot of that. So.
So, before we get into the YSP stuff, what I think is interesting, most digital nomads are sort of self-employed type of people, consultants that kind of craft a trade or whatever and then go out on their own.
Mm-hmm.
You are a digital nomad who's more in the corporate world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now you work for a Fortune 500, right?
Yeah, Fortune 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty interesting because a lot of the people that watch the show are, digital nomad, we think like young programmer, young graphic designer or something like that. Has it been hard to be able to work from home or work remotely in the corporate world? Is that something new, or have you been able to do it for a long time?
So I've been able to do it for a long time. I've been a telecommuter for 6 or 7 years with this company, and I've been in and out of this company multiple times. The company I work for, United Health Group, they really pioneered the work from home concept.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so when you look at major corporations that really started this trend and are really established in it, United is, I believe, the first on the list or the second on the list now that HP is starting to really push that side of it. So with organizations that buy other companies by the handful, it's really interesting because my team, I've had people on my team for 6 or 7 years that I've never met. And so we talk on the phone every day, we have a great rapport, we do video conferencing, but it's rare that we all get together in one location. And as they buy new companies and we roll in new team members, it's really welcoming to them. So if they're sitting at a site in Arkansas, or we've got somebody in Maine that just joined the team, since we're all remote anyway, be it in the office or actually at our house, it's really welcoming to the new folks.
That's pretty cool, because I know that I feel like my impression of the corporate world is that they're mostly against telecommute and that kind of stuff.
It comes in waves. We get leadership in place, we get COOs occasionally that feel that we really need bonding and we really need the team dynamic and let's get all the people into the corporate office. And then they get the bill for trying to do that and they go, wow, this is a great thing, let's send everybody home. We don't want to stand up 20 new buildings to bring all these people in. So it does come and go, and really it depends on the people, it depends on the person, and it depends on the job. That self-motivated people, whether they're in an office setting or they're in a house setting, I feel will be successful. And when I hire, I look for that in my teams and my team members. My leadership looks for that in their teams. So as long as you have people with a centralized mission, it doesn't seem to matter where you are.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, so you are about to build a YSP in Colorado, just outside of Denver, right?
Hey, I'm definitely looking at it, yeah.
What is a YSP?
A WISP is a wireless internet service provider. So the idea is very similar to a standard internet service provider, but instead of running cable, fiber, or DSL to your house, we would connect remotely. So the remote side adds a little bit of complexity to the setup overall. You need line of sight, you need a variety of spectral analysis going on, but it allows me to get to places that traditional ISPs really struggle with. So in the community that I'm in, there's a lot of varied topography, there's a lot of snow, there's just a lot of weather in general, and with the lower population density out in the further communities, they're just not high on the list to get quality internet. So some of the communities have 1.5 megabit, some of the communities have nothing, some of the communities don't even have cell signal. So by doing a wireless ISP, I can actually relay into the community and then broadcast out from a repeater in the middle of their location and connect people to that tower with really high speed, really high quality internet.
So tell us about internet in general. I mean, here in Mexico, and I know even in the U.S., a lot of times internet is super inconsistent, often crappy. Why is it so hard to get good internet at your house in general?
There's a lot of things that go into it. So starting at the very most basic thing that almost everybody runs into that nobody knows about is what frequency are you running on your router? So if you're in an apartment building or down on the beach like we see here and you just set up a wireless access point and it's broadcasting on the same frequency as everybody else on the beach, your connection's going to seem really poor. And that's something that it's not the company's fault, it's nobody's fault, it's just a configuration type thing. So starting there and working your way in, the next thing is what's called last mile connectivity. And last mile connectivity is, in my world, it's wireless. In Telmex's world here, it's typically ADSL. And a lot of other companies, Izzy does cable connections, but it's the connection from your physical residence to whatever the local box is. And that's the next big hitter, is how fast is that? How reliable is it? Walking around Yelapa, it's really interesting because you'll see DSL lines and phone lines strung on trees or on fences, going into the dirt and under stairs and all of that out 7-10 kilometers out to the edge of town. Well, clearly that's not going to work incredibly well.
Right.
So a lot of things go in, and then you have just the administration of the overall network, where in Mexico, internet backhaul bandwidth, as we call it, which is after it's collected, what you do with it, is relatively expensive. So there's a lot of companies that instead of servicing properly, they just know their service is going to bottleneck for a couple hours every day, and it's free-for-all. So in those scenarios, it's just from a management perspective, you start seeing slowdowns.
Who owns the internet?
Nobody.
Like the bottom, the base core backbone. What is that?
So the internet itself is interesting. So nobody owns the internet, and it's really free for use. And what you're getting at is who owns the physical lines? Because the internet is just connectivity between two computers. Now, that computer might be Google, it might be Facebook, it might be in California, New York, it might be in London or Tokyo or someplace like that. So the trick to it is, how do you get there? And there's a variety of providers. In the United States, you've got Level 3, you've got CenturyLink, you've got a couple of the big hitters that have these big fiber bundles that shoot all across the country. Now in Mexico and in Latin America, you've got Uninet. So Uninet, Carlos Slim's company, had come in and run fiber through large chunks of Mexico, down into Nicaragua, all the way through Latin America, and they built the backbone of internet and the internet transmission layer in Mexico. So the one catch to it is they did a good job and they have a solid network, but there's zero competition. So in that place, what we're describing is basically Uninet owns the internet, that they own your ability to get from one location to another.
So do you feel like what you're doing with YSPs, does the future look like a new backbone that's wireless?
I don't think so. Personally, for me, I can backhaul at very high speeds. You can put up multiple dishes, and I can relay hundreds of kilometers with a single leap. But you're never going to beat physical lines. You're never going to beat physical fiber. But what you will be able to do is have more satellite installations. That great example is in Colorado, or even here in Yelapa, we're 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers away from what I would call high quality internet. So instead of trying to bore through rock and through jungle and through mountains to lay a fiber line, I can go high speed with a line and then service the community with GPON fiber, with VDSL, very high speed DSL. There's a lot of ways that you can do last mile, including wireless, which is what I've chosen to do.
Is that what the V in VDSL stands for? Very high?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep.
So all of this you learned on your own?
Yeah. Yeah, it was something that interested me. And then you start at the beginning and you look at the different technologies that are out there and you look at how they work and you just start backing into how to make these things happen.
Wow. That's insane. So you, looking at an 18-year-old kid coming out of high school who wants to be in tech, who feels like a techie, maybe he's into math, whatever, wants the digital nomad lifestyle, wants to be able to live wherever they want, what path do you recommend?
It's a great question. So I look at it from two perspectives. One is your drive to live wherever you want and do whatever you want, overarching than your need to have a career that defines what you do and makes you money. There's a lot of careers out there that people that are really passionate about surfing or really passionate about certain activities that they can just make money with. And that's absolutely what I'd advise, is find something that clearly you don't hate, that works for you, that allows you to do the things that you enjoy. When you look at some of the companies that have started like that, Billabong down in Australia started very similar. There's a variety of surfboard companies. GoPro started with that exact same mission.
Right.
That these guys were just out there saying, hey, I really want to capture this cool stuff I'm doing, and started a business from it. So if you're smart and you're talented, but your passion isn't work, it's not corporate, it's not working for somebody else, as opposed to spending 10 years to try and build a company before you go do these things, go do the things and find a job, and then find your passion, and the way to make money is usually pretty obvious.
Good advice. It's interesting because I've been thinking a lot about it lately, and it's almost like, for me, a switch has sort of flipped where I used to stress out about, oh, my job defines me. Am I doing the job that I want to be defined as? And then it became, no, my job is just a tool to the lifestyle I want. So the lifestyle became more important. Like, I want to be able to live in Mexico or travel wherever I want to. So what I do to be able to do that is sort of less important. But then again, I invariably have tons of side projects to fulfill those sort of intrinsic, or those urges to feel fulfilled.
Yep. And it is important to have work that is fulfilling. And it is important to do things that you are passionate about and you do care about. But certainly coming right out of school where you don't have the experience to land a job in like the 70K range, you've got all those things going on, as opposed to jumping into like Goldman Sachs or something and starting with the 100-hour work week at the very beginning. If what you're really passionate about is traveling and exploring, there's ways you can do that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, how do you feel? Like, you're literally changing people's lives. Like, I mean, some of the stuff we've done here, we've gotten feedback that people are like, this has changed my life.
Absolutely. It's really cool to do, and it's really cool to see. So especially out here, running your own business is really exciting, where you've got the logistics and you've got the operational side of it, but it allows you the freedom to do things that you're passionate about. So one of the things that I was passionate about is coming to a village like this, 3,000 people, fairly remote. You're not going to be able to drive in here. What opportunity do the kids have to have the life of their discretion? That when they grow up, they're walking to work, they're riding mules to work, they're walking to school. So getting them a computer lab and getting them high-speed internet allows them to see the world, and it allows them to have virtual teachers and to do all of these things to give them the opportunity to say, yes, I do want to do this, or I want to go to Mexico City and do something in finance or along those lines. So it's really cool to be able to act on those things and see the impact to the community and the people.
I was thinking that yesterday. Yesterday we went and fixed the computer lab at the school here and got them access to high-speed internet. And, I saw some kids lingering outside, and young guys. And, it's the same thing back home in, the city or wherever, where, kids who grow up in an environment where they don't have a ton of options at their fingertips, the one easy option is always to sort of, maybe I sell some drugs, maybe I do this or that. So to see a kid that maybe could have gone that way and now maybe ends up a programmer because he's got really good internet and great computers now, it's pretty freaking cool.
It is. And the thing that always astounds me every time is the breadth of ideas that come out of this. That when I think about giving somebody a computer and teaching them things, I think the way that I went through it is you could learn programming, you could learn how to do this, you could learn analytics, you could learn all this. And we have people that, especially from the co-work, great example is I'm teaching English to students in China.
Right.
And that's what I choose to do. I want to be a teacher, and I want to do that. And you get people with all sorts of these brilliant ideas that they could start a company, they could do this, and they come up with things I'd never even thought of.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of another cool thing I think we had talked about, where you just sort of work and bust your ass and keep going, and then you find a passion that you didn't even think would be there down the road. Awesome. Tools? You got any favorite tools you use every day? Couldn't do your job or your life or whatever without?
The computer's helpful.
Well, I just found out you have a hot tub that you use every day, which is pretty sweet.
I do have a hot tub. It is fantastic. Yeah. Computer's a big hitter. So
what do you use? You're a Linux guy, or you're Windows?
Typically a Windows guy. So a while ago, obviously I can use pretty much any of the operating systems. I run servers on Linux and things like that. But I'm not the cutting edge guy anymore.
I liked how you were on my MacBook yesterday, and you were like, because usually Windows guys are like, I hate this, I can't use this. And you're like, wow, I can see how Linux guys love this, because it's basically Linux.
Yeah, it's just a front end on Linux.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cracking me up. But yeah, I'm not the cutting edge guy anymore. I don't need the cutting edge software or hardware. The thing for me is I need to accomplish something. I want to make something work. So when I'm doing the wireless ISPs, honestly, I need battery life. I need to be able to sit on the tower and configure things and do that.
Yeah, you use a crappy computer a lot of the times.
I do, yeah, absolutely, because you SSH into something, or you terminal here or VPN there, and yeah, you're good to go. You don't need a lot of horsepower.
So I like to ask people, will they nomad forever, or will they end up settling down? But you took nomading to a whole new level with your own plane. I feel like the question for you is, are you going to get another plane someday, or are you done with your airborne adventures?
Definitely possible.
Yeah?
Yeah. So it's the location. The location is the big thing. So when I went to Colorado, It's very high altitude. You get a lot of turbulence coming over the mountain. So I traded the plane out for a Jeep. And I've got a pretty intense backcountry Jeep now. And so it's just kind of rotating the toy between whatever works for me at the time. But if I ended up someplace like the Philippines or even down here in Mexico and I could pick up a plane, the amount of things you can see and do and places you can go is just phenomenal. And
how many times do you feel like you almost died in your plane? Because you've told me stories where I'm like, that seems pretty hairball.
It gets a little dicey sometimes. There was one notable occurrence that stands out in my mind. That was a big hitter. I would put it less than 10. There's a few times where it was a little bit more crosswind than I thought coming off the ground, and you start getting the wing down to the point you're skipping a tire across, and you're not able to get off the ground, and you're running out of runway. And
if you crash in one of those, are you dead, or can you crash and walk away?
You can crash and walk away, or you can crash and get carted away. They're actually pretty strong, and you're going pretty slow at the end of the day, so you're only going maybe 60 miles an hour.
Okay.
And you've got a full harness, you've got all the rest of that, but getting hit in the back of the head with a 60-pound dog certainly wouldn't be helpful. But yeah, you could walk away from it.
Wow, that's crazy. Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show, Dan. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
If you got any questions, I'll link up some information where people can contact you if they have any questions for Dan. I have questions for this guy every day. He's sort of like my Google Point 2 or whatever. Thanks for watching. Catch us next time. Don't forget, work the web so you can enjoy the surf, whatever your surf may be. We'll see you next time. All right.